Okay.
Oh, I guess I can do that. There we go.
And you can see who's on and how many people and all that.
Yeah, yeah, I'll see them here.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. Nobody's in here yet, but or if they even
Right,
will
I
be,
know.
I don't even know. But
It might be just you and I,
it
but
might
who
just be
knows?
you and me. That's fine.
That's all right.
All right, so welcome to the Outlier Firefighters podcast. This is episode 2, technically, because I did one in my car, uh, kind of asking some of these same questions that I'm about to ask. So I have on my father, Chief Patrick Tanner. He's a chief of the West Chicago Fire Protection District. He's been there for a couple years now. And then he also, prior to that, worked for the Highland Park Fire Department. He was also their fire chief when he left. Did almost 30 years. Just
Did
shy,
29
right?
years and
Just
yeah, a
shy.
few months.
And so the whole part of this starting, and I'll bring whoever's listening up to speed, and then him and I are going to talk. I'm looking for more insight to longevity in the fire service. I think my generation of firefighters, it's rare that we have such a passion for the job, and a lot of people in my generation of the fire service don't really think in a way of longevity. So I model a lot of what I do after my own father, and I think he has a pretty unique perspective in the fire service compared to most, and uh, is a pretty good example of longevity in the fire service. Because I mean, you've been in now how long? Like total, we're
30,
talking.
39 years with POC time, which is only a year. I mean, so it's 30 in Highland Park. It's 8 in West Chicago now. And my goal is to finish at 40 years. So I don't typically count that POC time, that paid on call time that I did in Gurney, but it was about a year. So,
Yeah, cool. So I'll kind of run you through questions, and then maybe as we talk more, we'll go off script because I'm sure we'll get on some tangents or something, which is awesome. So,
yeah.
also a little bit of context. So, for me, I didn't know that I wanted to be a firefighter. I grew up with my dad, my whole life as a firefighter, and for me, like it was, just going to the station with my mom and my brothers, and the rollerblading on the bay floor, the help and pull pranks on guys at the stations, the softball games, and all those things. I still believe that we're supposed to be those things, but I never really thought about it as a job. And then when I was 18, I was able to do a report in school, and he hooked me up with the right people, and I came in and rode with Highland Park, and I learned, and from there, I mean, I was in. I didn't really know everything about what the job was going to be, but from there, that was it. I was off and running. So, for you, what got you interested in the fire service, and then what made you decide to pursue it as a career?
Yeah. So your Uncle Tim, my oldest brother, was a firefighter in Gurney, and he retired as a battalion chief. He was part of the original full-time staff in Gurney before that was all paid on call, and he was one of the first guys to work a shift. So he had the big old, well, the guys, the older guys will remember it, but there was instead of the little Miniature pagers, he had this thing that was on top of a dresser that was the size of a suitcase, basically. It was some big ass antenna. Sorry,
That's not
some
the.
big antenna on there. And so that thing used to go off, and he and I were in the same room for sleeping for some of our lives. So that kind of got me started. But I mean, I went to high school in up in Warren in Gurnee, but I went to vocational school out at College Lake County, and I did it for medical stuff. So I was I actually was thinking that I was going to try to go to medical school. My parents didn't support me in that, and so I ended up going to that vocational school, and that was 2 years, junior and senior year. But it was more nursing, but then it was emergency medicine also. But it was back then it wasn't quite the same. I mean, that was in 82, 83, so it wasn't quite the same. Now it's a whole program out there. It's completely different than it was when I started. But I went to nursing homes and things like that on my senior year for like experience. And so as soon as I got out of high school, I was on gurney as a pay on call, and a couple of buddies there who were a little bit older than me. My first test, they're like, "Hey, you should take the Highland Park test." And like, well, I'm only 18. They're like, well, that one you could be 18. It's one of the only ones back in the day where you didn't have to be 21. So I took that test, first test, and I know coming out the gate, that's not normal. And I told you this, it's usually you hit the lottery when you get that first
Yeah,
full-time job.
yeah,
And most guys and gals have to fight for that. And you know, you take 20 tests and you're waiting for that call. And me, it was one test and I got Highland Park. I had no idea at the time. Started there when I was 19 years old. Went to EMT school right away because I already had the background from this, you know, vocational. Passed that with flying colors and then went to paramedic school right away. So I got early on, and I remember early in my career, we'd have some. Once I got on as a paramedic, I was probably 20, 21 when I certified as a medic. That back those days, again, this was 85, 86, 87. The lieutenants were salty back then, and we'd get a bad call, you know, a weird call, bad call, and he'd be like, you should probably stay outside in this." And I'm like, "No, I'm the medic on the ambulance.
yeah.
I might not have been the lead medic, but this is my call. Shut the heck up, and we're going in there, you know." So it was kind of interesting because I was so young, but everything in my career has been young. I got promoted young, got chief's job young, got deputy chief's jobs. I mean, it's always been young in my career. So it's that's kind of my history going back, and that's how I started. My brother Tim was the one that really started that. Hearing his pager and then running the POC calls at night. I'd go in and sleep overnights on Friday and Saturday nights when I was, you know, when I didn't have to work or something, or I'd even do it during the week too because I was out of high school at that point.
Yeah. The whole being young thing. I remember when I started in Antioch. I remember that I was struggling with some of that, where I had ambition to move faster, and the fire service kind of has like this informal like timeline that you're supposed to abide by, where people come up and say, well, you shouldn't do that until you're 5 years. You shouldn't do that until you're 10 years. You know, and like there's these benchmarks that people just make up, and I don't know where they come from. And I don't know if you remember, but I was thinking about engineering, and I had only, I mean, I started in Antioch at 20, and I think I started driving at 21 or 22 because I wanted to work more. Like I would think I was doing sports authority at the time, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I need to get more shifts. And then I remember coming to you like everyone's telling me I shouldn't do this. Like I'm too young for this. And you said something along the lines of like, well, if you're mature enough or if you're confident enough in the things that you're doing, like go for it. Like
Right.
don't let anybody else tell you, and just go for it. And I've really continued that. I mean, that's been like a foundational thing for me in my career, that I think modeling off of a lot of what you do and how you've been has helped me personally. And I know that there's other people out there that are like me that are waiting for that like validation. Like it's okay for you to step outside of the norm, I guess, right?
Right, right. Same thing happened when you were promoted to lieutenant in Antioch too.
Mm-hmm.
We had the same conversation for the same
Yeah.
reasons, but even more because now you're affecting other people too that you are technically in charge of, and you have to watch out for them at the same time. So we had that same conversation at
Yeah.
that point too, which that happens still today in smaller organizations or ones that are struggling for people. um, Not necessarily full time, but it could still be a full time
Yeah.
job instead of a contract job. It just depends. It's a similar thing that's going on with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Uh, so I'm sure. Well, actually, there's a little more to this question. So, how did you
Yeah.
learn about firefighter culture and like our ethics, our ethos that we kind of
Yeah.
have? How did you learn about all that?
Well, being so young, you're impressionable. So a lot of the guys and gals in Gurnee, I mean, that's how I learned the fire service was back then because I had full-time people that were over top of me, and I was just POC riding shifts, so I was extra. I didn't count towards staffing. I was extra, and back then, you know, in the 80s, things were a lot different. And I say that, and it doesn't mean that it's better or worse. It just means it was different. And, we struggle with that in today's fire service too. And we'll get into that later. But, how is it different? It's just different. And so the culture back then was a little bit looser. You had a lot more, in my opinion, people that followed the paramilitary structure better. They believed in that and they followed it. And this was just what you did. I think there's a lot more people today, younger firefighters, that question things, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, but I think also there's a line with questioning authority and questioning, not necessarily questioning orders, because that's a given, but questioning authority. And again, there's a line there because if somebody's telling you to do something that's not safe, I believe that you should be able to say something and question that, but there's a line to that. And I think back then, the line didn't get crossed very often. And if it did, you paid the price. Today, I think it's a lot different. And again, some of it's bad, some of it's good. And so back then, that's what I learned. That culture of what it was to be dedicated, the culture of having fun and playing jokes on guys and things like that back in the day. And that's how I learned the culture. As you move up in the organization to where I'm at now, I wouldn't say that decreases, but it does. It naturally has to, because you're the one that's in charge. Everybody's looking at you. If you're always pulling pranks or doing things, then that's not a good thing either. But you also have to have that side of you that people see, that shows that you're human too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Were they? I'm trying to think of the way to phrase it. In the way that they maybe taught you, was it more corrective or was it more upfront? Where
Yeah, we had a barn boss.
yeah,
Okay. Chris Favia was an engineer that worked with me a lot, and he was in Highland Park, and I was lieutenant, and he was older than me. Again, I was usually younger than people that were in positions, whether it was the barn boss or a lieutenant or a battalion chief or a captain back then. I was usually younger, but I was sometimes in charge. So when I was lieutenant, Chris Favia, awesome barn boss. As a lieutenant, if something wasn't right, I didn't have to say anything. Chris would knock that down. And today, that's called picking on somebody, or it can be viewed as picking on somebody. And it's just a different culture and a different way of doing things. And again, it's not all bad. It's not all good. It's just different. And I'm always careful about saying that. I try not to generalize and say, oh, today, all the young guys suck, because that's an easy cop out to say, oh, it's the generation, they
yeah,
they they don't want to do anything, and that's an easy cop out. But there's some truth to that. There's some validity to that difference. And if you could solve that, you could probably solve the fire services issue with dedication and some of the things that we struggle with today.
do you see? So every department has like their like go-to guys, their guys, right? That
Yeah.
right, and every administration does. In one of the books, Chief Scott Thompson, or maybe it was Viscuso, I don't remember, but they were talking about favorites and like,
Hmm.
well, you're not supposed to have favorites. And in the book I read, he basically said, no, you have favorites. Like, there's a
Yeah.
reason for that, right? Like, everybody gets treated equally,
Sure.
but that guy's gonna get handed the ball a couple more times because he's proven that he can do that.
Right.
And
You take a project and you finish the project.
yeah,
Some guys take the project, oh, look at me, I can do this. But then the project never gets finished or the task never gets done. And pretty soon, it doesn't take much for you to realize that that's not your go-to guy. I say it, and it's not something that you're proud of, but it's 20% of the guys do 90% of the work. And I'm sure there's different percentages out there
yeah,
that people use, and you've probably heard of it.
mm-hmm.
But the other, the people in the middle, the 60% in the middle, just want to come to work, do their job, do it successful, and have some fun and get along and do the thing. And then the other 20% at the bottom, or 10%, are the guys that just typically don't want to do anything. They come for their shift and they do their 24 hours and they go home and don't even think about the place on their 2 days off, which there's a balance there. But
Sure.
don't even think about it and barely think about it while they're there for their 24 hours.
So that's where some of this is coming from. Of my wanting to start some of these interviews was at some point, like every person when they sign up, nobody came up to you and went, "Hey, you're going to be a firefighter." Like at some point, you had to go, "All right, I'm going to go be a firefighter."
Right.
Something drew you to it. At some point, you cared enough to fill out an application and do all these things, and then for a lot of those people, like you're talking in that bottom, like 10% or whatever, it's like completely gone. And like maybe I need to interview a disgruntled old guy, but like,
Right. Get one of the
um,
10 percenters. Yeah.
where does that go? Like, how do you lose that?
Right.
And what happens? I would probably
Guys will blame
theorize
that on,
if you're going to say what I think you're going to say, they'll probably blame it on administration or
there you go.
right,
Bingo.
and that's usually
Morale and
yeah,
morale. And some blame morale on the chief, which I think is BS. I think the chief has a hand in it,
sure.
but I think you can control your own destiny, and I think you can control your own morale. And those barn bosses back in the day, and I can't use that term today because they exist, but are they the same thing?
I don't.
You tell me.
So my department's different in the way that we're. I mean, they went full time in '88, and then shortly after they opened like stations, and they had guys get hired in blocks of like, a big chunk of people. So, and then once they had enough, they've been pretty much having those same guys for 30 years that place has existed, or
Sure.
my department, and a lot of them actually this year are retiring. I mean, we're gonna have 12 retirements this year, and so there was no like gap in any of that. So the barn bosses more or less either got promoted or I don't know, or those guys don't really. I mean, we have some. We have the guy who my mentor was. He is our barn boss. The whole department. He's our barn boss. I think. I mean, and he's everybody's big brother in that way. And
Is he a firefighter?
yeah, he's a firefighter.
Yeah.
And
Right.
he has, as far as I know, no aspirations to promote, and that's great. I mean, he fills that role perfectly. But he's probably one of, and we have people that definitely bring value. It's not like they don't, but it's not in that same way where like really establishing like what's right and what's wrong. And I think that's the one
Right.
thing when you talk about culture and in the fire service is because it's become with technology and being able to communicate, you can hear 5,000 things that are saying, well, this is right. Well, then how do you really determine what's right? I personally, believe in a lot of like Bobby Halton and some of those people that are huge in the fire service that basically say this is right, and I choose to believe that makes the most sense to me, right? And maybe that's it. It's just people that influence me. But when you go to an apartment that doesn't necessarily know about the fire service as a world, and they just know about it as their own organization, you're kind of stuck with what's right because there's no outside influence to really change that opinion. And
Right.
I think that becomes a struggle when you kind of lose. Guys in my generation and younger come in hungry, and we've all had this in our pocket for forever. So if someone's saying something that doesn't sound right, we can look it up in 3 seconds and call it out, and so
Sure.
we kind of have like this natural tendency to like question or challenge or something like that.
Hmm.
And I think that kind of hinders, and it's good in the same way. But I think when you talk about culture specifically, if a new guy comes in his early 20s into a fire department and they sit down and say, hey, this is what we do, this is why we do it, and you need to be this way, this is how we are, they go, well, why? Your why doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
And I had friends that wanted to get in the fire service uh, that just didn't click with them, and I tried to explain some of those things, like new guy rules, like you should be the first one
First one
up,
up.
right?
Wash the
Hold doors
dishes.
for
I mean,
people, shake hands with
right.
people when you meet, and
Right.
like little things, right? That just they add up. And not every department's like that. Like I don't think that the new guy should be the last one to go to bed. Like he's getting up at 3 a.m. like the rest of us. But there are some respect etiquette things that just don't make sense to people, other than this is what we're supposed to be.
Right.
So
They come in though and they don't understand that. How do you teach them that without telling them, without making them feel like you're picking on them, or, that they're different? And that's part of the struggle, I think today, is that that's kind of gone. And I'm not sure how you get that back other than you just set expectations. I mean, the expectations, I think, in the past were set just by walking in the door. I think this generation needs it written down, or needs to have it explained to them.
they need why.
Uh, well, why? It's because this is how it's done, but is that a good enough answer?
For some things it should be, but for some things it isn't, right? Like,
Right.
because that's another thing. You can get in a trick bag where you never
Yeah.
grow and nothing ever, like the fire service is always going to change, and then that's how we've
Uh,
always done it. Doesn't resonate with like certain things. Otherwise, we'd still be using buckets and
right.
horses, right?
Uh,
But
you can't, when the guy walks in the door, gal walks in the door, you can't say, shut up, sit down, and
yeah,
sit in the back seat and don't ask any questions. And that's what they did in my
yeah,
generation. I'm not saying that's what we need to do now
no,
at all, because I didn't appreciate that. I mean, if you did something wrong, we had an oven cleaning drill at 3 a.m. one day because we pissed off the lieutenant that day with something we did, and the captain came down on him. So we were up, he got us up at 3 a.m. Hey, it's time to clean the oven. I'm not saying we go back to that,
no. I mean, I got called
but
back to the fire station when I was POC because I left a squeegee on top of the tanker. Like, I'm not kidding.
yeah,
I lived. I totally, maybe not to quite the extent. Obviously, things have changed for me,
yeah.
but
Go underneath the engine and draw me all the valves to let all the water out of the pump and out of the waters, out of the piping. Draw me a diagram of that. Go under the engine and do that right now. I mean, that was
yeah.
what you were told to do back then, and I would never do that today. In fact, if a lieutenant did that today, I'd be hearing it in my office. Hey, this guy's picking
Yeah.
on me.
So
And again, I get it, but
what's funny though is like because I like understand that to a certain extent where I can look at that through a different lens and go, well, that's really, it's about knowing your equipment. That's about
sure.
respecting the piece of apparatus. So how do you still have that but not make the guy crawl underneath it?
Yeah.
Again, if we could
Well,
figure
that's
that
it.
out, we should bottle and sell it. But
Same thing with the story, and I forget the firefighters' names, but it's, hey, that's my saw.
yeah,
It's my saw. No, it's not your saw. No, it's my saw for these 24 hours. That's my saw.
yeah,
Don't touch my saw. Don't mess with my saw. But if you need a saw, that's my saw. And you know what? It's going to start every time. It's going to be ready to go. The chain's not going to be on backwards. It's going to be filled up. It's going to be oil. It's going to be ready to go. That's my saw.
yeah.
And not everybody has that attitude. It's just like, yeah, saw's in a compartment, and maybe they open the right compartment, or maybe they don't. And that's a shame, because when it's my saw, that I know everything about that. And as a lieutenant, if that's a blue shirt that's working for you, you know you're dialed in. If you're called to do ventilation, you're going to have a saw that's
Yeah.
going to function. You're not going to be on the ground pulling on the cord like some people do for 15 minutes and then have another engine show up with another saw and say, oh, my saw will work, but yours isn't, so get out of the way. I mean, it's pride and ownership, like Lasky says.
I mean, yeah, that stuff still needs to exist. Otherwise, we just become any other job. So there definitely has to be a balance between those things getting brought up. And maybe there was a section in the middle of that where it was belittling. So people were like, well, screw that. I'm not going to care about what that guy has to say. But in
Right.
reality, there's some value to what that was. It's just the delivery needed to change. And as we grow as a society, I guess. But, I've definitely noticed that if you kind of get the why behind things, people
Right.
start to click a little bit more. But there
Sure.
really is no like formal, this is what the fire service is supposed to be like thing. People just kind of, at least in your generation, they either hung around the fire station or something like that, and then
Right.
it became a place where they grew into and eventually became a career, or people stayed POC or whatever. I mean, I know I had worked with plenty of POCs or part timers that really did get it, and they were like an example of what we're supposed to be ethically and
Right.
culturally. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's it. But how do we get there? I don't know.
I don't know. I've really thought about that. whatever media source people, uh, the younger generation listens to, is the
Like we're
way
on right now.
like we're on right now, pretty much. I mean,
Right.
that's people don't know what they're expected to do if they're not told, right?
Right.
So, and this question, this can be of an actual person you worked with or somebody in the fire service world. So it doesn't have to necessarily be somebody at a department. But who
Right.
influenced you the most early in your career?
I was fortunate enough to go to FDIC pretty early on. The guys down there, and you can rip them off. I mean, Andrew Fredericks was in NY,
Oh,
uh,
keep talking.
New York,
Hold on, keep
died in
talking.
he died in 9/11. But I mean, he was big about hose streams and water applying water. I mean, those are the kind of guys. Dave Dodson with Reading Smoke. I mean, these are the guys that influence you. And we're one of the questions that you wrote down. I just kind of looked them over. I wanted to be very off the cuff with
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
but I mean, those are the kind of guys that are deciding where the fire service goes and being the subject matter experts as we navigate, the new things in the fire service. And those are guys influenced me. Going down there is that's what recharges my batteries. And especially back in the day, when I was online and more lieutenant's role and those, even as a chief, though, there's still different classes I go to. It still recharges my battery, keeps me, interested in the latest and greatest of what's going on.
I think what I've learned, I mean, you know that I love that place, and my uh, childhood was a lot of that. I mean, not that we were going to the conference in the same
Right,
obviously capacity that you were, but like I
right,
I remember like when ticks were brand new, and
right,
uh, Craig and Derek and I, my brothers, we were messing around with them like out on the show
right,
floor, and like
right.
I remember that, and I'm the same way. I mean, that place, like I haven't showed you this, but I got the Book of Andy, like
Oh,
I
there you
found
go.
a website that prints PDFs, so I had the PDF and I had to make a book out of it, and like,
Oh, that's cool.
um,
But I mean, those are the guys like Rick Lasky. I mean, I
yeah,
went to smoke divers in
you did smoke
IFSI,
divers.
yeah, back
I
in
didn't know
'80
that.
whatever. Oh yeah,
Not
back
the
in the day
Georgia
when it
one though,
was
right? You hiding
no,
that
no, no,
coin from
no,
me? Okay.
no, the Illinois one. But Hugh Stott, who was a battalion chief, retired in West Chicago. Lasky, Rick Colomay, those are the guys that taught that down there, and I was fortunate to go to that at a young age. But those are the things that instill the dedication and uh, trying to survive yourself as a firefighter, but also trying to help others around you and your team survive too. And I came back and all the things that you learned down there, bailing out and all the things that we were taught, come back and I taught it in Highland Park. And that was the beginning of all that stuff, the ladder bailouts, the Denver drills, all those things you learn down there because that's when they started saying, you know what, if a firefighter dies from this, why don't we teach this so that nobody else will die from the same thing?
Yeah.
So that's how that concept kind of started. But I mean, that's what really keeps me going and keeps me interested in the fire service.
Yeah, I think what's really cool about that place, about FDIC specifically, is like everyone is just on an even playing field, right? You could be a blue shirt and you could take a command class. Like it
Right.
really, not that you necessarily should, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everybody's basically their first name. Nobody's chiefs, nobody's nothing. Everybody's a
Right.
fireman down there, firefighter, I should say. But like,
Yeah.
that's I've only been taking classes the last couple of years since I got hired with Lake Zurich, but like I going to the show floor when I was in Antioch. You did catch some of that, and it was always fun going with you because you'd meet all these people, and obviously you had some connections given your position,
Right.
and I'm meeting all these people that are I've learned are chiefs, and they're all eating the job up, and I didn't know they were chiefs until I get
Right.
back, and then you hear like their names, and you're like, oh God, like I hung out with that guy for a little bit,
All right.
and that really like stuck with me. Like that's what's really cool about that place. That's why Bobby Halton, you would never hear him refer to himself as chief or anything like that. He was Bobby.
Oh,
Like
he was awesome.
that was what he was. And
I so much looked forward to Wednesday opening ceremony with Bobby. Oh man, it was the best.
yeah,
I'm gonna miss him for sure, but that was my favorite day of the week was opening ceremony with Bobby and his speech.
yeah.
But anyway,
Uh, I
little
mean, I could
little
talk about him for
little
an
tribute to
hour.
Bobby
I
there.
know
I
he
know.
just. That's so in the regards of the book of Andy. I was actually trying to put together a book of Bobby, but we'll see. All the stuff's not on Fire Engineering's website right now for some reason, so they're
Ah,
looking to put it back up. But I was starting to do some of his speeches, but I digress.
mm,
Uh,
yes.
but I could talk about Bobby Helton for hours. I feel like so, especially my well, maybe I'll tell the story because it is a really good story, and then we'll move on to the next question. So,
Oh yeah.
um, remember last year, right? So I had done hot classes for the first time ever, and I totally messed up, and I hate when I make a horrible first impression. Like I can't sleep. It just eats me up, and especially somebody that I like admire, and I'm like, great, this guy thinks I'm an idiot now, and I was super late. I got to Lucas Oil like with minutes to spare. Like my phone goes off. Like, all right, we're loading the bus. I'm like, what? I get in the car. I went down with Clay and jumped in the car and drove all the way down there. I walk up and I'm frantic clearly because I don't know what's going on. I've never gotten on the buses before, and like a beacon of hope from behind me, I just hear, like, son, are you lost? And I turn around, it's Bobby Halton, and I'm like, yeah. He's like, where are you going? I'm like, I got, I think I did Man vs. Machine or something like that. He goes, your bus is all the way at the end, kid. Like, you better start running, but you'll make it. And I'll never forget that. And then I remember telling you the story when you came down because you came for the weekend, and we were walking
Together, us,
together in
yeah.
the floor. And I go, hold on a
This is the
minute.
best part.
I'll be right back. Bobby Holton's there. Like, I gotta make this right. And I walked up to him and I was like, hey, Chief, like, I don't know if you remember. He goes, I do remember you. Did you make it to your bus on time? Like, I was blown away that he remembered who I was. And like his kindness behind that, like the way that it didn't matter who you were. He wanted you to come and learn. He wanted you to bring the next. He wasn't one of those young guys are dumb kind of people at all. Like, and I hope that resonates forever in the fire service. That we can all try to
Right.
kind of be like he was in that regard. But anyway, I love that story, so that's
Yep.
why I like telling it. Um, so what we just kind of talked about this. What keeps you passionate about the fire service?
Yeah.
Um,
And that helps. That recharges the battery because as a chief, you get worn down with some of the things on a daily basis that you have to deal with, whether it's a pandemic or some contract issues or whatever, all those things. So for me, I like to go down there get recharged. But in between all that, I'm big into technology, so I'll try anything new. I mean, we bought a kayak and put a fish finder on it to try to help our divers locate victims underwater. My personal feeling is the dive is the most hazardous thing that we do as firefighters. I put that above just about anything, even interior structure firefighting, because it's not done that often. There's no going back once you're into the water, and I just think it's the most dangerous thing. So anything we can do to lessen that, to me, is huge. So we tried it. I think there's room for it down the road. The fish finders that are out there now, I have a hummingbird on my kayak, and the ones that are out there now are 360 sonar rotate. I mean, they're unbelievable what they can pick up in the water. So I think that that's going to be something that's coming down the road. Drones. I'm a drone pilot. I got certified in 19 as a drone pilot. We're using those for search and rescue. Thought we were going to use it for fires and things like that, and we ended up not doing that because we also have a dog program, a canine program for search and rescue. So all firefighters parts of that, and that's one of the I'd say that's a big accomplishment that we've done in the last couple of years. It's not just me, it's the whole team, but it's just a bunch of departments that have either canine or drone pilots or both, and we get called out all the time. We did about 40 call outs the last 2 years, each year, 40 each year. And I call it a special team. It's no different than TRT,
yeah,
hazmat, or dive. We get called out. We got called 40 times in the last 2 years. Again, that's 80 times over the last 2 years, but 40 times each year. And that's new. That's not something that firefighters are doing unless you're in Colorado and you're on a task force, or in
Yeah.
Florida and you're going to hurricanes and things like that. Midwest, it doesn't exist. And at least not to the level. I mean, there's Task Force One in Illinois. I get that, but usually it's the coastal ones, or the ones that have bigger teams that have those kind of assets. And those are the kind of things that are cool to me, because if you sit still in what you're doing in the fire service, you're just going to get left behind. As you know, I mean, most of the things that we get come from the military, the ticks, some of the
Yeah.
vests and things like that. Usually it comes from them, and then it gets filtered down to us. I think it used to be more time between when they would have it and we would get it in the fire service. I think that time has shrunk now, but a lot of these things, technology wise, um, I enjoy that because it's always changing, and that's what I like about the fire service in the first place. There's no 2 days are ever the same. Going back to why did you get into this? To me, there's not a day that's the same any day of the week. It's always something different, whether it's medical calls, crashes, fires, whatever. It's always something different. But yeah, I mean that's what keeps me passionate.
Yeah. I it's the quest to figure out what's changing and be part of that wave, if you will, really makes it enjoyable. Like ISFSI just did their search study last May, I think it was, and I mean it was coincidental that I was writing a search and rescue class for work,
Hmm.
and like literally as I'm presenting it, I'm like, guys, this info came out literally 2 weeks ago. Like you're getting the most modern information you can get. That's one thing that in terms of like technology and new stuff that you're seeing with Fire Rescue Survey, Safety
Yeah,
Research Institute, like they're really
flow
starting
path.
to right like, hey, what you guys used to do still kind of makes sense for a lot of things, but this is why, and this is
Right,
maybe don't take all the windows anymore because of flow path. Uh,
right,
the CPAT teaches you to drag a person with their head up. Well, you'd kill them in real life. Like you're supposed to keep them low. They've proven those things, and
right,
instituting technology into our job isn't something we should be afraid of, right? It's something that
right.
we should try to lean into. Also,
You have to embrace that.
with your team, shout out to Vitali who told me to ask you about Peoria, but we could do that offline because I don't know
Yeah,
I don't know what
we're
that
not gonna
story's
go
gonna
there.
be, right? So,
Yeah, we're definitely not gonna go there. Let's just say a fun time was had by all,
I don't
and
doubt it.
nobody was injured.
Well, I mean, nobody ended up in handcuffs either, probably, right? So,
Very true. Too good.
did you? So, on the subject of passion and keeping current, and I'm sure we can talk about it later too, because I think that one of the most profound things you gave me was the concept of a shelf life. But I want to
Hmm.
dedicate like time to just talk about that specifically, and I
Yeah,
would tie that in with what you're talking about technology and
yeah,
stuff. So, did you ever lose your passion? If so, how did it happen? And then what'd you do to get it back?
yeah. I think over time, for me, I back in the day, not now as a chief, but back in the day, I think sometimes you get bogged down with trying to get people to be at your level, whether that's training, whether that's your passion, whether that's your dedication. And I think it wears you down over time. And it's hard to get past that sometimes. So when it gets you down, it's easy to say, ah, screw it, I'm just going to take care of me, or I'm just going to do what I can do to keep myself educated, or you know as passionate as I can be. I think over time, though, what happens is you realize that that's not doing anybody any good. It's not doing you any good. It's not doing the people around you any good. And you just, for me, again, that FDIC was my recharge. I'd go there and learn something new, and then I would try to bring that back. Whether, again, it could be reading smoke, or all the things that they teach there. Bill Guston from Florida was an awesome instructor. I used to look forward to going to him every year too, because he was a no nonsense, no BS, and just would, that he would tell you how it is. And the classes that I took from him at FDIC, because he was very passionate. He would speak, and he was very upfront about stuff, and I didn't like that. Don't be wishy-washy with me. Don't There's no gray area. Just tell me black and white. What is this? And he would have scenarios and things like that. So to me, that's what got me back on the right track again, was something like that. It could be a good fire too, and a good fire for us means it's, something that we were successful at. Not necessarily, you always have to be careful, because when the regular person's watching this and they say a good fire, well, it's not that we go out and start them. We just try to mitigate them and make them better. It's that person's worst day, obviously, but
Yeah.
for us, it's every day is a challenge when we have a fire, and we, it's a very dangerous thing that we do. So when I say a good fire, that just means something that was very challenging, and something that we were able to do together, and teamwork and all that. So, I mean, those are the things that would get you back on track, if you will, were those things.
Classes,
Yeah,
learning,
mostly the classes, I think.
yeah, school, all that fun stuff. I'm with you. That's
Yeah,
why I found my place in training, because it was. I remember uh, I was kind of floating around, and I wasn't really getting what I needed in terms of learning when for a short time in Antioch, when I was probably 23 or 24, and I got an opportunity to teach their Explorer post, and like all in. I mean, it was great. I was basically running my own fire academy every year, and I learned what I didn't know because I had to teach it, and then that made me want to learn more and continue to learn more. And now it's not saving embarrassment; it's being really good at my job and staying
yeah.
into it.
I told you before, we've had conversations about this. Is the guys that are the guys, and sorry if I'm using the guys, the
I
people
know.
that are the
Yeah.
people. I know gender and all that stuff, I get it today. Again, I'm 38 years in this, and I try to tiptoe around it,
It's,
but the people that are writing books, your Laskys, the Andrew Fredericks back in the day, those are the guys. They chose to be the guy. They weren't chosen to be the guy. They chose to do that. They wanted to be the authority, and they were the ones that knew, and wrote books on it, because they chose to do it. Somebody didn't say, "Hey, so and so, you should write a book, and you should be the guy on this."
yeah.
You can be the guy. Anybody listening can be that person and be the authority. You just have to be passionate about it, learn everything you can about it, and you can be the authority. That goes for anybody. And that goes for you. Obviously, we've had that conversation. If you choose to be the person that is the authority on a topic or many topics, who's to say that you're not the authority? But debate is good too. So if somebody else says, "Well, I'm the person," well, then you debate that, and then maybe you're better and that person's better, and you both learn from it. But anybody can be that person.
Oh, there's my sound bite.
No,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, no, no. That's great. I
Yeah,
love it. Awesome. Um. Well, here's a can of worms for you. So, fire departments all over the country have people who have lost their dedication or never had it in the first place. How do we repair this? We kind of started this path, but maybe we'll.
yeah, a little bit. Yeah, new technology. You got to do what the firefighters of today are used to. You held up your phone. I mean, that's huge. Firefighters are on their phone constantly during the right times, obviously.
Yeah.
Technology, games, and things like that are all still popular with this generation. Even the generation you're in, that maybe a generation that's coming up now, whatever generation you're talking about, in the past few years, those kind of things seem to hit home for those people. I'm not saying it's a PowerPoint presentation, for God's sakes, but
No.
I'm saying some kind of podcast or some kind of audio thing, some educational thing. And again, it's the why. I agree with you on that. You can't just say because, or hold up your collar and say because I'm a lieutenant. It has to be. It's because of this. We do this with the Alliance. We've talked about this. We're members of the West Suburban Fire Rescue Alliance, which is 6 towns that have same SOGs, do everything the same. Well, when we talk about a structure fire, we have a three engine, three truck, three ambulances, and five chiefs. Well, it's not just, well, what's the first engine or second or third engine do? It's everybody knows what those first, second, and third engine do. It's not me telling them. And we practice it in training. We practice it. It's in our SOGs, and they know why. And that's why the system works so well. So along those lines, it's kind of a far fetch, but it's the same
No, I
idea.
get it.
That's why we do it. So you can go to any one of my engineers on the engines and say, what's the second engine do? What's the third engine do? What's the first truck do? What's the second truck do? And they will tell you what it is. And I'm 100% confident that that will happen because we don't tell them, hey, we want you to, you're the third truck, you're the RIT company. No, it's automatic. They listen and know the first and truck are committed on whatever they're doing. Third truck, they know they're the RIT company with a RIT chief and a RIT medic. That's automatic in our SOGs. And so, you know, that's the why.
Yeah,
And I think this generation, I agree with you, needs to know why.
yeah,
And that goes for everything. Why am I cleaning the toilets today? Because it's Wednesday and Wednesday's toilet cleaning day or bathroom cleaning day. That's why. And that's the answer.
yeah. Well, I think a lot of the cultural whys are because we're as firefighters we established this level of excellence that we were supposed to represent, that we're always supposed to represent in everything we do. We're supposed to be a top tier group of people. That's why random people trust us to come to their house or fix their
Right.
problems for them, right? And I think that helps explain some of those things, right? If we can't trust you to clean a toilet, how can we trust you to go into, Grandma Sue's house and, you know, provide medical care for her or something? So
Right.
I think like you have to almost break it down to that absolute base level for a lot of people, and that's why we are, because we are supposed to be an elite class of people that have values that are unwavering, and that's what we're supposed to be.
Hmm.
Uh, so who do you know that best personifies dedication to the fire service, and what makes them special?
Uh, I'm not going to say names, but I'll just tell you generalities as far as the person or people to me that most benefit the fire district or in even past jobs where I worked in Highland Park. It's the individual that doesn't just show up for work and work that 24 hours and like we talked about earlier, it's the person that knows their job, um, that cares about knowing their job and cares about the people that are around them. And because you're part of a team, you do affect the other people that you're working with that day, whether it's at the same station or not, or same vehicle or not, it doesn't matter. You're affecting all those people. So to me, the personality is the person that is dedicated. Um, this is my saw. That, like we talked about, this is my saw for 24 hours. That's my saw. Those are the people that really, and they're not right now, they're not every one of them. I mean, it's just certain people, and it's hard, but those are the people that really make the department what it is. And I think everybody knows it, but I don't. Some people just don't know how to get to that spot, and 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 know how to get there. So we need to teach them how to get to that spot and teach them some of that dedication. It's very difficult to do, but I think we need to get as much as we can, get those 60% of the middle people that we talked about
Mm-hmm.
to that 20% to the top. You're always going to have a certain percent that's going to be difficult, the most difficult. Those are the most challenging ones. Maybe we can never get those lower percentage people up to that. But if we work on the middle ones and try to get them up to that 20, like we talked about earlier, I think that's a goal for now for the fire service is to try to get those people that are interested. Um, somewhat, I think they sometimes feel intimidated by the people that are dedicated. A little bit of peer pressure in there too, maybe. But I think those are the people we should target and try to get them to that next level.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Uh, so wrapping up my questions, and then we'll go off script because I'm excited for that too. Is what is the most important element for having a long and dedicated career?
Yeah, well, it just depends how long that career is for you, and everybody's a little different. I mean, I am unique in the fact that I was hired at 19, had 30 years on the job, a couple more months short of it at 49. I was 20 years on line. I was 5 as a deputy. I skipped the battalion chief role in Highland Park, went to a deputy role from lieutenant, and then went to a chief's role. So I was 5 years as a deputy, 5 years as a chief. Obviously, now I'm in West Chicago. I've been there for 8 years as the chief. Um, so I was unique in the fact that I could retire with 30 years, still be 49, and then still remain in the fire service and do that. Not everybody gets that opportunity. So for me, it was realizing that, having a plan, not working past that 30, and trying to get that next job. But all this to me is about balance. I think you've got to have balance in your life. I saw something that you had written on a post before, where somebody was questioning about your dedication, too much to the fireside and not enough to your personal life and your family. Well, I think that's unfair, because you can be dedicated to your job but still have a good balance in your personal life and your family life. I mean, for me, when you guys were younger, I coached just about every sport for you guys that I
Hmm.
could, because, and I didn't want to be an assistant or just a helper, because then I couldn't control the schedule. So my parents knew if I was doing soccer or t-ball or baseball, I had the schedule laid out for when our practices were. It was set up to the 24/48 rule. So we would, one week we would have Tuesday, Wednesday practice. The next week we'd have Monday, Tuesday practice. I mean, the parents knew it though. And again, I was a young coach back in the day. So I was always the youngest parent, the youngest father in the group, because I had, kids when I think Derek, I think I was 23 when we had Derek, and you were probably 25, and Craig was probably
Yeah.
27. So I had three kids probably by the time I was 26 or 27. So for me, it's that balance, and I still did all those other things, but I was still dedicated to the fire service, dedicated to my job. Um, so to me, again, it's that balance in life, being able to do that and balance what's important and still have that dedication to your career and your lifestyle.
I can say from my perspective, I never felt like you were absent in your dedication to your job as well. So you
Yeah.
achieved that successfully. I never felt like you weren't around or anything like that. Or
Well, you had it easy because your mom, my wife, stayed home.
yeah,
So that makes things a lot easier too, because that fills that void. So you're not
yeah, that's true.
being sent, and that's a tough thing to do too. And I could talk all night about that, obviously, because that's a very difficult thing to do financially. I worked a side job too, so the the fact that you guys didn't feel that, or at least you didn't, I'm sure your brothers would probably say the same thing, means that I succeeded in that balance to try to, not allow you guys to see that, and affect you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing.
yeah, I totally get that. That makes all the sense in the world. All right, well, what do you got for me?
I don't know. I don't really have much. I mean, I didn't think of any questions. I figured we'd be doing this off the cuff, and it would kind of roll into stuff. But um, I enjoyed this. I thought this was pretty good.
Yeah, I think we should talk about shelf life before
Oh,
you get
okay.
away because I think that your perspective on that needs to be heard by other people.
Sure.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, having gone through my career, and at this point, I've seen others in my positions that have done the same. And, you know, it's not going to be a popular thing that I say, but I think a fire chief has about a 10-year shelf life. I think, if you, as a chief, not moving up through the ranks, but as the rank of chief, five bugles, I think if you can't get things done in those 10 years, that it's time to move on. And I've seen too many chiefs stay on for 20, 25 years as a chief. And I think you're doing your department a disservice. I just don't see that. There's also the same thing with firefighters that stay on the job too long. It's a young person's job. It really is, and even more so today. It's more demanding, I think, than it ever has been. and to be physically fit and to be active and do those things, I think is even more important now than it's ever been. Um, but yeah, I just think in order to keep a district or a department moving, you have to succession plan. You have to have people that are, you know, up behind you that you can put in those positions. And as a chief, I think if you don't have that, it's a shame. And I think you're again, you're not doing what you should be doing for your department. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, you know, West Chicago had to go outside when I came in, and they were struggling a little bit, and I came from the outside, and so did Chief Lighting, my deputy chief Tim Lighting, came from the outside, and I think it was a good thing. My goal when I leave there is to not go outside. My goal is to have it from within, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
There should be somebody that's in that in positioning, if you will, to be able to take that role at some point in your department.
So would you say that so succession planning is going to be the word that comes with that, right? How does so now? Well, Gurney, obviously you didn't see that in Gurney, but for Highland
Right.
Park and West Chicago, what did your departments do for succession planning? Was it formalized? Was it informalized?
Yeah, it's difficult because as a chief, I can't say this guy or this person is the next chief. Uh, First of all, in the district, I don't decide that. My board decides that. But what I do is I try to get my battalion chiefs and my deputy involved in the budget or decision making of how I made a decision on something. Um, I even get my administrative assistant. She gets involved in things because before a few years ago, we had three part-time secretaries that were our administrative assistants. And the most difficult thing with that is they were great, but each one worked on a different day, so there was no consistency across the board. A couple of years ago, they retired, and we were able to bring on a full time. But even with her, she knows what's going on. That's part of succession planning because a good administration is only as good as an administrative assistant that's there to kind of keep things going.
Yeah.
And anybody that doesn't believe that is fooling themselves. So
We have a
to have
great
the
one.
right,
I
yeah,
totally get it. We have an awesome one in League
yeah,
Zurich for sure. She works really
right.
hard. Sorry, but
So I keep her involved in things too on a daily basis, especially lately, because I know that there's going to be things that I'm not going to pass along. It's going to be like I'll be retired for 6 months, and then something's going to pop up, and they're going to be like, "What the heck is this?" Well, if I've been telling her things, and I've been doing it for a good couple of years now, or a good 6 months, I guess, not a couple of years. She's only been there, but anyway, telling her things that will continue that she'll know about that the next chief or deputy chief might not have been aware of.
so some of that how I, in some of the things that I've seen people try in their last couple years to like establish like a thing, like a metaphorical like monument to them, right? That right, I'm gonna and it to me it usually is coming from a good place, right? Like it really
Sure.
is, and it's not like it's malicious or it's not like a look at me thing. It's just I feel like I see, and I'm not even just my department necessarily, but I think that in the fire service in general, people try to like leave this like legacy right at the end. So they expect that 30 years from now they're going to look back and say, "Oh, fire or Lieutenant Jones's blah 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 thing is still
Right.
here. He was the guy. Like he. So, do you have any like insight on like you should still try to like set up a department for success, right? In what things you do, what things you want to change, because it should be about the department and not about you, right?
Yeah.
And how do you find a balance between setting something up for a change that you believe in, but at the same time leaving it open ended enough
Right.
for when you're gone, people carry that forward and grow with it.
Right. So strategic planning helps with that. And just I had a 5 year, and then COVID kind of happened in the middle of that. So I didn't update it. I just updated it for 3 years because my goal is to be there for 2 more years. and I didn't want to dictate a 5-year plan when I have a plan. It's not that I'm counting the days, but I know in roughly 2 years that I'm going to retire and then I'm done. So I was careful not to dictate what the future of this district is going to be, but yet keep it in line with, moving things along. So to me, the door when I leave, I tell my guys this: when I leave, and when you leave, and when everybody else leaves, the doors are still going to go up. The department still functions. It's going to still move on. We're still going to go on calls. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than anybody on the department. And I'm not the person that believes in putting a plaque on the wall for my name. That is not me at all. It's not why I got into this. It's not why I'm still in it. And it's not how I plan to leave. So for me, success is to try to leave the place better than it was, and keep things going. We've had some recently. We've had some tumultuous times, if that's a good word, in West Chicago with union leadership and me. And it started with COVID, and then it kind of continued. And just recently, we were like, all right, let's move on, and kind of buried the hatchet, if you will. And we're doing that now. So we're trying to make the place better and get it back to where it was when before COVID actually hit, to continue the success of the district. I mean, we opened a firefighter academy. We have a dog now. I mean, there's things that we have done. We also cover the DuPage Airport, so we have, we staff our ARF trucks at the airport 24/7. So that's another thing that was kind of flounder when I got there, and we now have everybody on the department is ARF certified, so anybody can go out there, with the exception of a couple new guys. We just haven't got to them yet, but wanted to make sure that we were prepared in case they wanted to add more personnel out there, and we were ready to do that, so they didn't have to wait for us. Those are the things that are important to me to make sure that that keeps going, and it's not about me; it's about the district.
And so is there like so like there's probably not always a formal like, all right, here's the ball, but do those things just naturally start to fall into place? Like, are there people then that get interested in something, and then kind of you start to let some of the leash off and let people have some things? How does that transition then?
Yeah, when I got in West Chicago, and I joke about this, but doors were literally locked in the fire station. People couldn't go into certain places. So it's a metaphor. I unlocked all those doors and said, if it's in your fire station, I'm not going to keep you out of this. It's your fire station. So we did that early on when I started in 2015 there, um, put people in charge of things. My thing with my newly promoted battalion chiefs is, if I have to do your job, I don't need you. So do your job. If I've got to do it, I don't need you. So I've opened that door for them to do their job. I don't quartermaster. I mean, if I got to do we just had meetings today about the quartermaster. If I got to do, and he's a firefighter, blue shirt. If I got to do his job, I don't need him. So I want him to do that job, and I want him to do it well. I want to give him the tools to do it right. So that's what I do. I try to let people run with things and let them be in charge of things, so that you build that confidence, you build succession planning. Just because certain person might be doing quartermaster today doesn't mean that they're not going to be doing a bigger project later on in their career for the district or for the department, whatever you have.
Yeah.
But those to me build confidence. It builds people's self-esteem. It keeps them interested, and it gets them interested in the fire department in general. Because if they don't have that interest, then they're the guys that are at the 20% that just go home and don't, do anything on their 2 days off, or have any interest in the department while they're even working for their 24.
Are you guys more committee driven, or is it like how do the responsibilities? So my department, we have committees. There's usually a chair of the committee, and then they meet and they
Yeah.
come up and make decisions, right? And then ultimately, like, they kind of dictate a lot of how we operate. Like, I'm on the training committee, and we decide what's best in terms of the schedule and how we implement things, and then it gets given out to everyone else. Like, the fire chiefs don't do that. That's us.
Right.
Or like we have a tactical committee that's very small, and I'm on that one too. And there's a handful of us where we meet, we decide what tactics make the most sense for our particular fire department, and then that gets pushed out, and it comes from us. Is that how
Right.
you guys operate for the most
With,
part?
with yeah, with the alliance, it's a little
Oh
different.
yeah, that's
It's
true. Okay.
for training specifically, we have an alliance training committee that meets. So to have an internal training committee is kind of doubling the effort.
Yeah.
So our training officer goes to monthly training committee meetings with the alliance, and they dictate the schedule for, the next 3 years of what's going to happen. So it comes back from them. But like for apparatus, we have an apparatus committee. We don't really have tactical committees either because it's all
Yeah.
dictated by our SRG. So it's a little different from there. But um, the apparatus committee, I sit on it, but I don't lead it. Lieutenant Greg Zudas leads that, and he's been leading that for 2 engines, 2 ambulances, and just a new Seagrave tower that we just purchased. He's the one that leads those. I sit on there and I go to the meetings, but I'm not dictating that. The way that I come involved is, for instance, on our engines. One of the things that we came down to with the committee was, do we want a ladder rack or do we want a traditional style mounted on the side of the engine? And the committee was split. Well, I made the decision, and I said why I made the decision. I gave them the reasoning, but I I I was the tiebreaker,
Yeah.
and we went with ladder racks. I said they're lower, less injuries potential. Even though you have to have a space to put that ladder rack down, I get that. But if you're driving the rig and you're the engineer, you should be able to take care of that and park the rig in a place where you can get to the ladders. And oh, by the way, there's 2 more engines coming and 3 more ladder trucks coming on our fire. So give one of their ladders.
Must be nice.
So yeah, so that's how we do things and try to lead things that way.
Was Highland Park like that at all, or was it very administratively driven?
When I started, it was administratively driven. The chief and the mechanic, he was on shift at the time, decided what our engines were going to be.
Yeah.
The blue shirts didn't really have much to say, neither did the lieutenants. I changed that in Highland Park when I was a deputy and the chief too. We had more of a committee. As far as training, it was just a training officer. It wasn't really committee driven. I can see advantages and disadvantages both ways.
So we have a training officer, and
Sure.
he doesn't really guide necessarily like the culture behind how we want to train and that kind of stuff. He's pretty loose and lets us pretty much. I mean, he's about to retire soon anyway, but
Mm.
his things are making sure that we meet our mandatories and that we're you know properly compliant, I guess. Um, but I mean, do you know like around you? Well, the alliance that's
It's the
hard, right?
alliance.
But
It's
like
hard. Yeah.
I do you think in the other chiefs maybe that you've met or the other firemen that you've met that work in other departments, do you see modern now, is it more committee driven or firefighter driven versus administratively driven, or is it kind of a wishy-washy?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't answer. I don't know. Typically, I don't deal with those other departments at that level. You know what I mean? As a
Yeah.
chief, you'd be better off talking to another training officer that's involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Across the board with other departments. I just don't see it at that level with what I do.
I'm curious
So it's a
how
tough one.
relatively new that is, because you had said that, I mean, when you were in Highland Park it wasn't like that until you helped
Right.
basically develop it to be like that. And
Yeah.
when, in Antioch it was actually kind of like that. I would say for the most part that it was committee driven. I think that's maybe not quite to like the there still was an administrator, there still was a chief that ultimately said yay or nay, and which still
Right.
exists, where I work now. But like, they were more guiding, which makes sense because Annie got hired at 18, and you could have I think I was the apparatus committee chair when I was like 27 or 26 or something like that, and like I just cared about them, and so I got handed the ball. So there did need to be some oversight from somebody that had experience. Um,
I mean, the whole idea of a committee is you have different people with different backgrounds and specialities. So if you look at an apparatus, mechanic is going to know the transmission, the pump and
yeah,
tank, and those kind of things. Your nozzle person is going to know what kind of hose lays or a hose bed and how those should be cross lays, all that kind of stuff. You should have a lieutenant on there because they're the ones that are going to be on the engine, so they need to know how to work it. You should have a blue shirt engineer on there that knows, and all of those things combined gives you the best of the best to help put an apparatus together. That's just an example of a committee for
Yeah.
apparatus. If you can apply that across the board for anything, whether it's training or whatever, because you can have people that are, more into tactical type firefighting, and you're going to have some that might be more into the RIT specific, rescue. And so to have different people with different backgrounds, I get that, and I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay.
I think that is the way it should be. Yeah.
To mix, yeah, have mixed people with
Yeah.
different special, yeah. So like the way ours is set up is, and I almost kind of wish it wasn't, but I also there's benefit to it. So like our apparatus committee, there's a group of people. There's a hose person. There's a extrication person. I'm the
Hmm.
tools person. And we all kind of have our individual specialties in that
Hmm.
way. But then we don't really cross over very much. So like when there's a hose thing going on, like I have something to do with it. Like I can throw in my 2 cents with things, but ultimately like I'm not purchasing anything. I don't. Those guys, it was two, and I think it still is two. One guy was maybe going to get off of it, but they purchased the hose and they do it. Uh, so
When you get when you get those people on there, though, so for instance, our engine, we have two engines now that are pretty much similar. The first one we built, people on the committee actually took and built wood mock-ups of the compartments
yeah,
so that they could tell exactly what was going to go where. And I'm not going to do something like that as
sure,
a
yeah,
chief. So it's that dedication above and beyond that you get when you have people that are specialized in a certain area and care. And I call it a firefighter's fire engine. I mean, it's not a parade engine. It's there for a reason. We had at the time, it was the lowest hose bed that Ferrara ever made. We designed that in our spec because we're sick of people having to step on, back steps and the ice and whatever, to grab hose loads off of there, and it's not safe to do that. So we designed it with a low hose bed.
yeah.
But that meant that the back compartment on the back step had to be shrunk down. So there's a trade-off. But again, they mocked up those compartments, knew exactly what they were doing. They knew the saws were going to fit in there, and certain things, and everything was laid out before the engine was even starting to get built. We already knew where everything was going to go
I think that
and
was.
confirmed all those sizes.
I mean, that was one thing that I learned kind of shadowing that because I tagged along I think at one of the FDICs where you guys were building that,
Hmm.
and uh, I didn't know this. I think I still was where I had to have still been working in Antioch because I was paying attention to apparatus building, and one of the things that I hope everybody should know in the fire service is you can do whatever you want with a custom built rig. With obviously an engineer's got to say it's okay, but it's a custom rig for a reason, and I think people don't really realize that. Like that thing should be purposeful to your organization. If you go out and you buy one off the rack, basically,
Right.
you're not doing your organization a favor at all. You're basically stuck with a 20-year piece of should be 10, but let's be real, 20-year piece of equipment that could be terrible for you.
Right.
We unfortunately have one of those. We have an off the assembly line model that we've been limping around with ever since. It's nothing like our other rigs. It doesn't make sense for our district. Uh,
Right.
so
And my thing is I always maintain that, you can buy a squad pumper or whatever, but to me that's just a piece of apparatus that does two things, and it does neither one of them good. It never works, and you can say that it does, but it just doesn't. Because if you do that, then your hose beds are 8 feet off the ground. There's trade-offs for all that.
yep.
So, but to me, you get two apparatus out of it, but it doesn't do either one of them good. It just does both of them mediocre.
That's where
I've never really seen an apparatus that does both.
Quince. I'm with you on Quince, and I spec one before I left. I mean, that was what I was supposed to do, and it was a cost saving thing for them, and it was what it
Sure.
was. But like, yeah, Quince a bad ladder truck, and it's a bad engine. Like,
Right.
why buy it?
Right.
Just so you could have a 75-foot ladder? Like,
Right.
that doesn't make any sense. And I get everybody's got nobody has a limited unlimited
Sure.
bank account. Like I know that, especially ladder trucks. I mean, in my area, good luck.
Hmm.
I think the two towns that neighbor us have them. One's going to get rid of one. One just got rid of their squad too, and they went to all engines. We just built a squad, but it's a squad, but it's got water on it. So again, it's two things. It's not and operationally, we're jump companies, so that thing, and it's at the house with our busiest ambulance. So really, that thing, when you have your holy crap call where the semi ran into a school bus full of pregnant nuns, like that squad is not leaving the house because that crew's on an ambulance call over at a nursing
Right.
home. So I digress, but still,
Yeah.
I'm with you. If it's a rig, it needs to be built for what it actually is, and not trying to cram everything into one piece of apparatus. It ends up failing you in the long run.
Right.
Wow, what a tangent to get on.
Hmm. Oh yeah. It's good.
uh, are your committees and special teams, is all of that driven or not driven? Do you get credit for that in your promotional process? So if you're on the apparatus committee, do you get points in a promotional process?
No.
Ugh,
No. Something to think about.
I'm just gonna leave that bomb there.
Yeah.
I'm I'm against it, and I'm on like 6 committees, so it'll
Hmm.
benefit me someday. But I'm completely against it. I think it gets people on those committees for the wrong reason. All too often,
Yes.
we'll see people get promoted and then be like, "All right, I'm done. I get off all the committees." It's
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? Like, why were you on it in the
Right.
first place?
Points.
I'm a big believer that the promotional process should be 3 things: an interview, a written test on your SOGs, and for us EMS protocols, and then a tactical evaluation. I think it should just be those three
Right.
things, and that's it. And I know that there's like Fair Promotions Act and whatever, all that crap, but like nothing else. It shouldn't matter. Like you shouldn't get Chiefs points. You shouldn't get points for anything. It should just be
Right.
you, like what you bring to the table. That's it. But
We struggled. We had to take the tactical out because the evaluators didn't know the Alliance SOGs, and so they couldn't learn them in order to do a tactical evaluation of our guys. So the union and I kind of agreed to it because we did it once, and they're like, "Well, this evaluator had no idea that second engine's supposed to back down and why," and I told him that, and he's like, "Well, that's not what is going on. You shouldn't be doing it that way because most suburban departments are
well, guess
different."
what?
And I know. So we actually negotiated and realized that that's not going to work for us. So I understand the tactical part of it, but we don't have a tactical evaluation in our promotional process. That's a tough one.
Well, I think what's hard, and I get it. Somebody, I can't remember the quote, but somebody, and I'll swear once here. We'll see what
Mhm.
happens. But, well, maybe I'll edit it a little bit. I can't remember where I heard it, and it was, I must be the dumbest fireman on this planet because I've never been effed. You know what I mean? Somewhere along the line,
Uh,
I feel like every fireman thinks that they've been screwed in one way or another. And I think that's probably where some of the promotional stuff went that way, where now there's all this other red tape that comes around it, and there's points, and there's a standard that has to be followed, and it has to be an outside company that evaluates you, and it's got to be this because somebody could complain that they're being singled out and all that, and it just adds so much crap to not only that, but even hiring processes. There's so much stuff now where
mhm.
it's getting away from like the actual person, and it's just becoming like, all right, you got to follow these 5 steps. All right, you passed all those, you're good to go. Like that's not an
Right.
evaluation of a person whatsoever.
No, I agree. I mean, we're just going through the process right now. You could talk about recruiting and how we're challenged with that right now. Everybody is, and there's no answer for that. I
I have
don't
a
think
hot
there's no
take on that though.
silver bullet, but
So we have hired out of our last 3 guys that we hired, they're all early 20s, and you would think a lot of the stereotypical things that you would expect out of that Gen Z group, they're not that at all. Like it's super refreshing. So where when I was testing, it would be hundreds of people at a test.
Right.
I was number 77 on my list, and I got hired. We haven't had 77 people test for my department in 3 years,
Nobody has.
right?
Nobody has.
And so we have 50. So we're putting out for our second list, I think, within a 12-month period, maybe third, if I remember correctly. And there's 12 applications in right now, and it's probably been out for like 2 weeks. But at the same
I
time,
feel better because we have ours out and we've got 24, so
yeah,
I feel a lot better.
it seems like. But what's happening? So what I'm noticing is that and Bobby Halton again, like don't lower your standards. He's got a whole thing on that with recruitment.
Oh boy, I
And
can talk about that too.
um, you'll see that departments are like, well, we need to get more people in here. Like,
Nope.
no, like don't drop your standards. Don't get rid
I
of
told
those
my
things.
guys, so
Don't do
we
it.
just did this. So the College DuPage, we used to go through with a consortium test. So it would be 5 or 6 whatever departments that would do. You get one written test, and you qualify for all these departments.
Yeah.
Um, they aren't doing it, and we don't know when they're going to do it, if they're going to do it again. So we went with IO Solutions. First time we've done IO Solutions.
Oh, I've been there.
So the debate was with Deputy Chief Lighting and I was, all right, what's our minimum standards? And my big thing is I am not lowering my standards. So we required firefighter, we required paramedic. The difference we did with that was you had to have paramedic at the time of offer.
Yeah.
We used to have it at the time of taking the test. So we extended that a little bit in case
That's fair.
somebody's in school. The other thing I did, because I saw who else was on IO Solutions, I didn't have a fee for our test. So I put it at 0. I'm like, let's just try to make it more enticing. And maybe that's why, are you on IO Solutions?
So we
You know?
are, yeah, and
Okay.
that's all. I feel like they're monopolized in our area right now.
They are.
I probably
But
took
my
3 tests that weren't IO Solutions.
So my point with that though is I looked on there ahead of time and I saw people were charging. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to charge. So if you want to take the test, it doesn't cost you anything. You just have to take the test and you have to have these qualifications. And I'm not going to lower my standard. I told my guys, we had our staff meeting in January, told all the firefighters, because we have a meeting with the chief, I call it chief chat or whatever. I told them this exactly. I said, I'm not ready to lower those standards. Let's see what we get in the first round. If we don't get the number we're looking for, then we'll have to go and see if we need to lower that standard a little bit to try to entice those numbers. But I'm hoping, like you just said, is that the number, even if it's 24, if it stays at 24, the quality of those people may be higher.
They all want to be firefighters.
Exactly. I think that's what's going on with this, is that you're not getting the person that's like, oh, I think I might want to do this one day and I have no experience, but I'm going to try this. I think what we're going to get out of this is the person that is more dedicated and has that experience, or the educational background like we're talking about. And that number will be, I think, more qualified people. That's what I'm hoping for.
I agree. So I think we just dropped, I think, our app fee as well, if I remember correctly. And
You can thank me for that.
it's.
I'm sure somebody saw it because there was some out there for $35. There was some out there
You were
for
lucky,
whatever.
Mr. One Test, because seriously, there were $55 for some of these tests just to
Oh,
take the
yeah.
test, and then I had to do CPAT. Some will require a 6-month CPAT. The CPAT itself was $150. It's up to $175, I think now. And so for take a 20-year-old kid who's trying to get into the career and doesn't, I mean, you don't have a lot of money to go throwing at that stuff, and you had to be picky and choosy sometimes, and throwing money at a CPAT every 6 months, like that sucks. And then an application fee for what? What does that prove? That somebody's got $35 in their pocket? And I get that they're trying to recover some money or
Sure.
whatever for putting the test on. I get that. That's the cost
But
of
it's
doing
not
business.
100. It's not 100 applications
No.
anymore, though. And that's the thing, So eat up that cost of the 25 people, hopefully, that you get. And yeah, to me, you're trying to attract those people.
And there was some talk. Some guys have. I don't agree with this opinion, and I argue it most of the time at work, where some people are saying like, oh, well, we should drop paramedic or we should drop firefighter or we should send people.
I'm not
to
there,
those.
man.
I'm not there either, because
Nope.
at least for us, we're only 45 guys, 43, and basically we're at the absolute bare minimum where you hire somebody with nothing, it's going to take them X amount of time to even
Paramedic school.
get on the street, and it's not a guarantee
Par-
that they even pass it, and it's not a guarantee that they're
exactly.
worth it.
Right.
For
So
what?
you hire them, you send them to medic school for a year, 13, or 18 months, whatever that is. Hope that they pass that. Hope they want to stick with it. Hope they make it through the class because the standards for a paramedic are a lot different now. The protocol's a lot bigger than it was. And then send them to a 9-week academy for firefighter. Hope that they pass that and don't get flushed out in there. They have a better chance of probably passing the firefighter than they
Yeah,
do paramedic, I think. I don't know.
depends on
Um,
where, but yeah.
it probably depends which academy you go to. But then you've invested all this time, and one thing happens to that person, and then you've just wasted 2 years, and you don't have them.
And they never
I'm
even
not
worked
ready.
online.
To me, if you can go to medic school and pass, and have that certification, and then go to the academy and pass, that to me is a good gate to have people have to go through to get the job,
I will
and
say
it eliminates a lot of that.
the only thing that's rough with Illinois is you have the way you get a fire certification. So it's not like paramedic, right, where you can just go to paramedic school. For fire, you usually have to be affiliated with a department, right, or sponsored
Sponsored,
in some way.
yeah,
And
right,
usually that requires you to work there or something like that for them to even upfront the cost. Uh, and maybe Illinois needs to try to change that way because those departments don't exist in volume as they used to. A lot of them either got busy to the point where now, okay, now we're like take where I live, Lake Villa, they're a fire district. They are over time going full time. They just unionized like this year, and
right,
when I started, and they were my neighbor department, uh, they were all part time. They didn't have any full time people,
right,
and so now like I think they might still have some part time. I think they do. They supplement some part time, but they're also hiring at the rank of firefighter now. So that might just go away. So there's one department gone. Like you can't even try
right.
to get a job there. And a lot of places they don't do localized academies anymore. A lot of stuff is a hybrid where they'll work for I don't know however many weeks, and then they go to Champaign, and they're done with that, which is something you probably could do if you hired somebody without firefighter. But at least in the traditional world, like you got a 30-year employee, like and yes, when they're on their year of probation, you can kick them for anything, but are you really going to waste all that time and money and
Right.
energy to to then find out at 9 months that they're not good? I, I don't know. I think the
Yeah.
people that want to be firemen figure it out, and it's being shown now. Even if it's just 12 applicants, they all want to do the job, and they went through the process to get to that point. But
Right.
Illinois could probably come up with a way to have it a little more accessible, where if you want to do the job, you can go work at a fire cat, or you can go to a fire academy that's somewhat localized. But they need to change.
Don't
That
hold your
needs to
breath on
change.
that.
I know. What's
Illinois
it's
is
right. I'm
a rough
learning that
state.
as I look around at the fire service and a lot of the stuff that I'm in on Facebook and other social media, right? Illinois really lacks in that. Illinois lacks in like training, and which is surprising. And I don't know if that's just like we have Chicago. Like you would think that some of that would spill over into the suburbs, but it really doesn't. Like I feel, and I only know maybe one Chicago guy, and I don't know. I mean, I used to work with him, and I don't know him well enough to ask some of these questions. But like, it just seems like at FDNY, they teach all over the country. Chicago, there's like maybe two guys that you really hear about, and I think one, it's not Chickarotis. Is it Chickarotis? I can't remember.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
There's only a couple CFD guys that really that share with the fire service, and you would think Illinois, like CFD, is a powerhouse in the fire service, but it seems like it doesn't spread from just them
Right.
out to the suburbs. But you go to like Texas or Oklahoma, like there's people like driving all over the state teaching with a
Right.
trailer, and they're putting these events on for people. Illinois doesn't have that at all. Like it's really weird, and I'm trying to figure out if maybe I just don't know the right people. But it sounds like there's really not, especially up in us, up where we are in northern Illinois. There's like nothing.
Right. No, I think it's true, and it's nothing bad against them. It just seems that that's always been that way, even back in the day when I was online.
And it's not like Chicago's malicious about it. It just doesn't
No,
seem like the newest thing is electric vehicle fires, right? And
yeah,
so you'll get University of Extrication. Ron Moore, he's got his whole thing. IFSI in Illinois has a class on it, but who's like the driving force behind the research? It's FDNY. Right
right.
now, they're like trying to figure that stuff out. They're actively doing research and they're trying to put out stuff to the greater world of the fire service, not just to FDNY.
They want to be that guy.
Pretty much, right? Like that's what it is, and they're sharing that information. It's just so interesting. For God's sakes, we have Backdraft, right? Like it's about CFD, and we're not like the front. Illinois is not the front of a lot of fire service knowledge. And there's great things. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm going to RIT under fire in November. Like IFSI does really great things. I'm not saying they don't, but it just doesn't seem. Aside from that RIT under fire class, from what I hear, is like top three in the country in terms of like
Mhm.
classes. It's Georgia
There's a
smoke
lot of guys
divers.
that from
That
Chicago that teach down there
yeah,
though. So I mean, maybe that's the place that you're missing where they're having an influence. Is
yeah,
down at IFSI.
maybe. Uh, yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
So when when you were going through your early stages of your career, and obviously you've found niches and things that really make sense to you. Was there like an aha moment? So I guess where I'm coming from is I jumped around from passions, right? It started with teaching the Explorer program. It started with keeping that. Then, I realized that I think my place was elsewhere and it was teaching further than that. And then I was like, oh, apparatus is really cool. So I was getting into apparatus, and finally I know I've landed on training and I've landed on leadership and growth, and like that completely clicks with me, and I know that that's going to be what I want to continue to offer to the fire service for more than just me. What's your thing in that way, and how did you find it?
Um, yeah, I think it was really driven by positions for me. It wasn't because I was a training officer for a little bit of time. I was union
Really?
president for, yeah, very short time.
I
Maybe,
didn't know that. So
yeah,
I'm going to pause you for a second because I probably should give context to whoever listens. So one of the things that you gave me that I am forever grateful for is you did not set me up with these preconceived ideas of the fire service, right? We can name another fire service family, and I'm pretty sure you know who I'm talking about, whose kid is exactly like him. And everything from tactics to attitude to everything, they're exactly the same. And you didn't really do that for me. You pretty much just went, go kid, and I found my own place. So for me, not knowing that you were a training officer, that you were union president, is actually like that's on par with that, because you didn't really like push those things. You
yeah.
never even pushed me to be a fireman, quite frankly. Um, but again, I thank you for that, because it has made me realize what's mine personally, because I found it and it wasn't you telling me to do that. So anyway, you were a training officer and you were a union
Yeah.
VP
Short
or
short time,
president.
yeah, short time for both of those. I mean, a couple of years probably for both. But I think position in the department changed, and it changed what my interests were, what maybe I was driven or pushed into a certain direction because of things that I accomplished. I mean, I built computers back in the day in our house, and I actually made a computer for the fire department. And that's just Chief Schneider was the chief at the time, and they were using some antiquated computers, and I built them a PC, the first PC in the department. I built it for them. We had it. Myrna was using it. She was the admin assistant back then. Um, but uh, I was technology driven. I was a geek that way, but I kind of just found my niche for different things. So what that evolved into was for me is I put all the first computers in the stations. I went and recommended to the chief Firehouse software back in the day when they were first starting. Now I don't like Firehouse software, but when they were the bomb back in the day, and we started with them, and I actually ended up teaching for Firehouse at some point because I was asking questions of the support line, and they're like, you're asking these questions that are a little bit more in depth. So I talked to the sales rep, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to go out and teach this for me, this Firehouse at different departments?" So I went out and taught that. I think it was just different. For me, it was driven by what the needs of the department were rather than my needs. And I never really thought about it until you just asked me that question. But it it almost seems like that's how I got into different things. And then I got promoted at, lieutenant, and that brings on a whole different um, thing that you're trying to get accomplished. I mean, Mike Roach and we would go out and do building familiarization. That was our thing. We would go to every building, and we would um, pre-plan it, basically, back before pre-plans were pre-plans. Say, hey, if we get something here, here's what you're going to do as an engineer. You're going to drop a line here. You're going to go get this. We would have all that plotted out, and we would go out and do every building in town, or every building in our district.
Yeah.
And then if we would work in a different district, we'd go do that district. And Mike was really good about doing that with me as an engineer. Mike never was promoted. He was that guy that knew what his role was. He was an engineer. He was awesome at it. Chris Favy was the same way. Never was promoted, was an awesome engineer, and retired that way. Um, so I think for me, I was driven by what the department needs were, and I just kind of filled those roles.
So it was more about
Uh,
the organization and supporting it, right? I mean, which is
yeah,
a good thing in
uh,
itself.
training officer Ralph Ensign was the training officer. Ralph's a great chief. Been to a couple departments now as chiefs, but as their chiefs. But I got into it with his recommendation, and so that's how that worked.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily aspire to be the training officer, but I was doing things that put me in line for that. Maybe I was at 10% that was dedicated in doing things, and people above that recognized that and kind of took me in.
Yeah.
um, I don't think I woke up one morning and said I want to be the training officer. I don't think I woke up one morning and said I want to be the union president either, honestly.
Yeah.
I knew when the day I started there, Kirk Williams and I started at the same time, back in '85. I told him when we were getting sworn in, I said, I'm going to be a chief someday, or I won't stay here. I told him that. He remembers this he reminds me of that all the time, or has reminded me of that in the past. I haven't seen him in a while, but when I got the chief's job in Island Park, he's like, you told me this back when we started. He said, you were 19 years old when you told me that. And so that's one thing I did know, is that I wanted to be in leadership roles at some point. And I don't think that's too common either, to know that, or maybe it is. Maybe people say that, but they don't really understand it, but what it means.
I don't think
But
anybody wants to be a chief anymore. So
yeah, I guess that's probably true.
so that's where it's so I mean that's my ambition someday, right? And I kind of wear that on my sleeve, not like I'm flashing it at people, but if people ask, I don't dance around it. I tell them where I want to go with my career. I thought I wanted to kind of stop that at like a shift commander type role. But
Hmm.
I'm realizing that I do want to take that farther because I want to be part of um, culture building and the success of the fire department and the fire service as much as I can. And one of the things that I don't remember where I heard it, but I'm in a whole bunch of different Facebook stuff for firemen. And one of the things that somebody said in it was like, if you don't like it, promote. Right. And in the
Right.
context, that was from blue shirt to lieutenant. But I, I think it continues up the ladder. If you don't like it,
Oh, it
promote.
does.
Right. Like
Yeah, it does.
you could either complain about it or you could do what you can to get into that position. But I
Right.
also, my department, a lot of people don't want to get into that position for other reasons. Uh, Even the captain position for us as battalion chief, just benefits and things like that. I'm not driven by that. And I think there are
Right.
people out there that aren't driven in that way. And that's fine. And there are people that are driven by that. And I'm not necessarily saying that they're like scumbags or anything like that. Yeah, you should. I mean, be compensated and support your family and all that. It's not that, but it's a rarity, and I'm coming to the realization that there's going to come a point where there are no chiefs because nobody wants to be. Well, there will be chiefs, but they won't be the right kind of people, right?
Right.
And we'll do that to ourselves in the fire service if people don't step up into that next position, even if they don't really think they're going to be comfortable or good at it. I've kind of been preaching that to a couple people in my department about the shift commander position. There's some guys that would be really good shift commanders, and for one reason or another, they don't want to do it.
Right.
Monetary reasons, or the honestly, the shift commander gets beat up. Well, yeah, that's the job. Like you're supposed to, you're the bridge between admin and shift personnel. That's what it is, and maybe that's why there's certain people that should do that job, even if they don't want to. Uh,
Right.
there's people that draw a line in the sand that would protect people and do things the right way. So I don't know. I don't. It's pretty rare that people get in and want to or know where they want to go. I know you used to do the Seven Habits thing, and I was reading some of that book, and I haven't quite finished it, but I at least read what the Seven
Hmm.
Habits were. And, begin with the end in mind. Like when I read that, it clicked, and I was like, okay. Uh, Clayton Booth, my lieutenant, he said, if you want to be a lieutenant, if you want to be a chief, you act like it from day one. It doesn't mean that you walk around and write policies if you want to be a chief, but the guy you're going to end up being is who you should be in the beginning, and in the same context of that. And that obviously, I mean, that resonated. I mean, it's not something that everyone's ever perfect with. Like it's something that you're constantly trying to maintain and hold yourself
Right.
accountable to. I'm not perfect. I definitely make a lot of mistakes, but and I'm definitely not exactly who I'm going to be at the end of my career. I hope that I grow into something better. Um, but it's rare, especially young like you. People don't want to do it young anymore. I don't know. I get it, but
I was a deputy at 39.
yeah,
So, and the three battalion chiefs at the time were great battalion chiefs, but whether they didn't want to do it or the administration realized that they weren't the right people, I was lieutenant at the time. I promoted to a deputy chief role. I skipped those three BCs and was a deputy chief. And they were older than me. They were more senior than me, but I assumed that role at 39 years old. And um, I always say that it's being promoted isn't always about. There's some luck involved with that. There's timing. There's being the right, not the right place, but the right position or the right seniority at the right time in your department. All that kind of plays into that. Yeah, I think in most cases, not all cases, but I think in most cases that plays into it. And then, once you're in that role, you're maintaining what you got and trying to, make yourself viable as the next chief. Or once you get to that deputy role or assistant role, whatever your department has.
yeah.
But um, I skipped that battalion chief role. I wish I could have been in that role. I was acting battalion chief a lot, but I had the mindset to be that person as a deputy and still not be power hungry and still respect the three battalions who had seniority and age on me. And it was fine. If you had talked to those three, I'm sure that they would say, initially they probably were what it was, but they weren't, maybe happy about it. But we all got, we all functioned very well and never had any issues.
That's what I was going to
But
ask if being young. So that's I mean, tail
you could
all
be
this
young,
time.
but you don't have to act young.
Yeah,
If you act, if you are confident and you act, mature enough, like we talked about before, that fits in all different positions, not just chiefs or administration roles. That's a firefighter. That's
yeah.
every role. If you're immature and you do stupid things, you're not doing anybody a favor, and that stays with you.
Yeah.
It's hard to get away from that if you have a career, your first 10 years are being an idiot. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I want to be a lieutenant or, oh, I want to be a battalion chief. Obviously, if you test and you get to that spot, there are people that get promoted that are idiots. It's because that's the process that we have. We can skip people, but you can't skip people. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's just not how it works. So, legally you can skip people, but with the unions and all that. And I support the unions, but you just be setting yourself up for a
Hey,
massive
I'm with you.
problem.
I am
Yeah.
very happy to be a union fireman and be part of it, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do in the capacity
Hmm.
that I do, and have the support from my family that I do without it. That being said, um, there's some people that shouldn't have jobs as firefighters, and if they weren't union firefighters, they wouldn't be firefighters.
Right.
So there's a double-edged sword,
Or lieutenants or captain or
or that,
battalion or whatever.
yeah,
There are certain people that get promoted that shouldn't be. And it's not everybody, obviously. There's the majority, the big majority of people are in the right positions, but there's some people that get through the cracks.
yeah,
And talking about right positions, one of my other big things is putting the right, putting the people in the right spots on the bus. Jim Collins writes a book, Good to Great. Great. When I got promoted, that one of the coolest things is that I read those books, and then when I got promoted to a deputy or a chief's role, I actually got to use those without people knowing that I was using them. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So you're like putting the right guy in the right position on the bus. You put him on a committee or you put him in charge of something, and you watch him grow and you watch him flourish in that position. And uh, using those books as examples, it was pretty cool to actually see it work.
Would you say that some of your leadership techniques came from strictly from those books, right? Like that wasn't taught to you in the fire service, right?
They're concepts.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think it's specific. It's just a concept
yeah.
of how to do something. It's your ship. That's another one that's out there
Oh
from
yeah,
the
Abershoff is great. I'm with
yeah.
you all day on
I
that
mean,
book.
those are classics
Yeah,
that you can't overlook those things. And yeah, every one of those books has its own little unique twist on something. But if you don't take away something from every one of those great books like that, you're missing out. And I always tried to take what I learned, like the Seven Habits, and apply it in some way,
yeah,
not for me necessarily, but for me and for who was around me.
yeah. So I'm new to reading in that capacity over the last year, probably. And I mean, you're my dad, so you know that I was a spastic ADHD kid that never read, and I read Calvin and Hobbes comics instead of bring a book to school. And I don't think I read a single book in high school. I just asked the people in my class what happened in The Great Gatsby and moved on with my life. And I like completely shunned away from reading. And uh, I learned that the at least the not just probably in the fire service but in general that one of the best quotes ever is leaders read. And I had it somewhere, and there's an awesome quote basically that says like, if you don't read, you're a moron. And I, like, all right, well, maybe this is the hole in my game that I need to step up. And it's been really great. I'm learning. So anyone that's listening to this that doesn't read and doesn't think they're capable of reading books, I can promise you, you can figure it out. And it's almost like working out a muscle. You might start only reading 3 pages at a time,
Right.
but
Or
eventually,
a
or a
chapter.
chapter, right? And then
Right.
eventually you'll get to a point. Sometimes it takes me a month and a half, almost 2 months to read a book, just because. Well, I mean, obviously I'm a dad too now, so like the time it takes. But I try to dedicate an hour ish on shift to read a book. I try to read at night instead of be on my phone. Millennial problems. We all end up on our phone scrolling at nothing. You could be reading a book, and I tried to shift that in my routine of life. So if you think you
Start
can't
with an
read,
audiobook.
that's what
Yeah.
it actually. It's Your Ship was the one of the first audiobooks that I listened to, and I
Right.
bought the book and reread parts of it, and then I had never gotten through all of Pride and Ownership, and I did it on audiobook and finally read it, and I was like, oh my god, this is like my foundation. Like now I know where this comes from.
Right. Most of us waste a lot of time in a car. It's a great time to have an audiobook.
Or a
It might take
podcast.
you, or a podcast. Yeah. It takes you a little while to get through it sometimes because you might, drive for 20 minutes and then,
Space
you're
out.
going to shift and then,
Yeah.
or yeah, whatever. Then you get to the next 5 or 10 minutes, but it's a good way to start. It gets you kind of hooked.
Yeah.
If you start with that, if you can't think, if you don't think you can read, because honestly, you got the whole reading thing for me. I never read a book in high school. I never finished one cover to cover ever. Um, I did the same thing. I do, the cliff notes and try
Yep.
to get through. Yeah,
And it's like it's essential. Like if you want to be, as we said before, if you want to be the guy, if you want to be that,
right.
like you need to read, you need to do that and see different perspectives. I mean, really, that's the best way to see other people's perspectives, especially if you read a book where somebody did all this extra research from all these different things that happened in the 1970s and the 1700s, and they combine it all into a book. You don't have to read all those articles. It just puts it all for you. I mean, that's what books are, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you can really get a wealth of knowledge from different perspectives just from reading one book. So,
Right. And we're not even talking fire service books. We're
no.
talking leadership books.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got all the fire service books on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Pride and Ownership. I mean, the Lasky book, I mean, that's a given. But I mean, then get into the fire service books, and that's a whole nother thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't say enough about it. I'm not going to steal the other the weekly scrap with Corley Moore. And if you ever get a chance to start listening to that stuff, I mean, he's top tier. He asks book or books that you should be reading. That's like one of his final questions of the thing. And some of the books these guys lay out is just it's awesome. He's got a great list on it, which was kind of one of the first dominoes for me to start reading was that. So we're almost at 2 hours here.
Wow. Time is it? Holy cow.
I know it's probably a good place to start. Doesn't mean we can't do this again, though. I mean,
No, not at all.
there's plenty of things we can talk about outside of
Listen,
what I'm. I mean, obviously, we got away from my research questions in a good way, though. So I'm hoping.
well, this is my first podcast ever, so that's good.
Me too. Well, I mean, I did record myself talking in the car, but that's
I don't
different.
know if
That's
that
not
counts.
an interview.
I don't think that counts.
That doesn't count. So I don't have a send off yet, and you can hang with me. I'll stop recording and
Yeah.
we'll wrap up. But
Sure.
if you enjoyed this, please like and follow. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. That's it right now. I do have a website where I was starting to write a couple articles. To be honest, that kind of started to die down a little bit, but maybe I'll pick that back up. I'm currently working on writing a book of some sort on longevity in the fire service, which is where these interviews come from. So yeah, those are my pages. They're going to be the Outlier Firefighters. That's on Facebook and that's on Instagram. Chief, Dad, if anybody wanted to get a hold of you, how could they do that?
I guess they could go. I don't know. I hadn't thought about that.
Do you have an email or something?
I guess an email
if somebody
address
had
is
questions.
fine. Yeah. So it's my old Highland Park one, which is HPFD. So Highland Park Fire Department 3300, which was my chief number. So HPFD 3300 at yahoo.com, or the same one at gmail.com. I stole both of those early on, and I kept them the whole time. So
you couldn't convert away from Yahoo to Google too, because that's where I'm at. I have
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, there's like this is Google, so you gotta have a Gmail account.
I know. That's I was gonna get rid of Yahoo to just go to Google, but
I was gonna get rid of Google and go to Yahoo. But,
oh
nightmare.
All right.
So yeah, that's my emails.
Well, cool. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, obviously I appreciate the talk. So, I hope everybody got something out of this. If you're listening, if you're on podcast, I appreciate you listening too as well. And I guess stay safe out there.
Thanks, everybody.